All right, guys, go ahead and fire away.
And what are your thoughts on him deciding to step away?
Yeah, I think, it's probably in the last week or so, a little over a week maybe. We'll miss him. I thought he did a really good job with our defense. It's a long and hard season, and so he decided to take a year off here, and we want the best for him, but I'd say over probably somewhere in a week and a half, somewhere like that.
Is it consideration for you to call the plays this year?
I think we're just getting started with that in terms of evaluating who and what. The internal evaluation will continue. We'll just keep taking it one day at a time. I'm extremely confident in the guys that we have and the coaches that we have already in our building. So we'll just see where it goes.
As a follow-up, if you go that route with you, what kind of adjustment will it be on game day, managing the game, calling the defense?
Right, and that's a real question. So, there's a number of coaches that do that, some defensively and some offensively, of course. So that'll be all be factored into the decision as we move forward here.
All plays, do you envision elevating a defensive coordinator?
Again, that's all part of the evaluation.
How much of the assessment with that is because you've been more of the overseer role since you've gotten there? How much of it is not wanting to spread yourself too thin throughout the season? Because I know how involved you are with everything.
Yeah, again, that's a big part of the consideration there, Joe, and that is my background. Had this happened on the offensive side, it would not be as big of a consideration, obviously. But again, just we'll take it one day at a time and do what we feel is best for the team.
Hey, Sean, as you're here this week, how much of a priority are you putting on seeing these receivers, and then ultimately at some point you're adding a guy who can really be there's been a lot of rookies who have come right into the league and been really good at that position. Yeah. How much of a priority is that for you this year?
In terms of the receiver position? Yeah, listen, we're confident in the guys that we have. I really liked some of what Shakir did last season for us, and I think he'll take another step for us this offseason into year two, and so that'll be a big thing for us. But we look at every position just like we do every year, and if we think a player can help us, ideally we're in a position come draft time where you can take the best player available, and sometimes it works out that way, sometimes it doesn't, where you're in a position to do that. But in this case, that would be our goal.
Sean, in your experience with running backs to year one to year two, where do they make their biggest leap, and where can James Cook do that?
Well, I think what you're seeing overall, maybe not specific to the running back position, but overall players really coming on in year three more so of late as opposed to year two. I think what you find is some turbulence in year one and year two for multiple reasons. I thought James Cook, that being said, had a really good first season, in particular the back half of his first season. We look forward to getting him back, at the proper time and seeing what he can do in year two for us.
Sean, you guys had talked at the end of the season about the possibility of Christian Benford playing some safety. How far along are you in that evaluation? And is that dependent on other moves too, roster moves that may or may not happen?
It will depend on that, as most situations do, Jay. But I would say that our plan right now is to start Christian at corner, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Bijan Robinson tape, and what do you think?
Usually when I come out here, I have, but usually when I come out here, my exposure to the draft, to these draft eligible players is not as much as I'd like it to be by now. I've been working on our roster and free agency and staff, this is usually when I start to ramp up my draft exposure. I've seen him for sure on television. He looks like a really good player.
For a guy like that who would come in and command so many touches, be a big part of an offense, is there that opportunity for a player, a running back in your offense, the current version of it?
There is. Again, you're always trying to add good pieces to your offense. You never turn a good football player away, and it's our job as coaches then to use those weapons, matchup opportunities to our advantage.
After taking a step back, reviewing the season that was, what were are your overall sentiments about the offensive line play in 2022?
Well, I would say, again, when you look at, you try and look at it, zoom out and look at it big picture-wise from start to finish, not just one game. And you say, hey, there's times where I thought we did a really good job of protecting Josh and running the football. And I thought our run game really got going in the back half of the season. But there was also some times when I felt like our quarterback got affected a little bit too early. So those are things that we have to continue to adjust and address moving forward.
Sean, is it tough for you if Tremaine moves on? Is it tough for you to think about your defense without that condor in the middle of the defense?
Yeah, Tremaine, it's been fun to watch him grow. I mean, he's such a young player. He was such a young player when we first got him out of the draft, and he's still a young player with his age. But to watch him mature and grow on the field, off the field, has been a true joy as a coach. I can tell you that he's a class act, comes from a great family. So we'll see where we go here.
How difficult would that be to replace that particular piece? Guy you've invested 5 years in, and what he can do. How difficult of a challenge would that be?
Yeah, I've told you this before. You never replace a person or a player like a Tremaine Edmunds. If that's where you're going with that, again, we just got to take it one day at a time and see how it all fits together here.
Behind him, the linebacker position, what you have potentially at middle linebacker, how do you feel about how they have progressed? Terrell Bernard, Dodson, guys like that.
Yeah, and so, Terrell got a little bit of time last year at different positions. He may have gotten some time at Mike, but most of it was outside, I believe. So I thought he did some good things. He was mostly used in a special teams capacity, Joe. And then Tyrell Dodson got more time at Mike, but then also touched the outside positions from time to time as well. So both are good players, and we need in this case Bernard to go into his second year, have a great off season, because I think what you see sometimes is players who have played in year one don't always sustain that or grow off of that foundation that they've established, and so I think that's also why you see players mostly kind of settle in year three and take their biggest leap. But we have full confidence in both of those players.
Sean, Chad Hall is a guy who had been with you, I think, since you got to Buffalo. Can you shed a little light on the decision there to, whether it was his decision or the team's decision for him to move on?
Yeah, happy for Chad and his family. What I can tell you is he did a good job for us this past season and in the years since he's been with us. And we're happy for him as he moves forward to Jacksonville. Sometimes things come up in terms of business decisions and everything, and on the coaching side of things, you wish you could keep everybody, but it's hard to do.
Sean, in the Super Bowl, the return motion the Chiefs used, they said they put it in the playbook because you guys ran it against them the previous year. I just wondered if you remember that or what you thought of the play, and if you'd realized that had happened with them.
That's nice for however that came out for them to compliment us. But the NFL to some extent is a kind of a copycat league. So you see something either on film or that's used against you, and then you run down the hall and share it with your OC or DC or special teams coordinator and say, hey, we should try this, or what do you think about that? And so it's kind of a beg, borrow, and steal type of league that way.
Ed Oliver's going into the last year of his deal. Up to this point, what have you seen from Ed from the start to now, and what more do you need to see out of him?
Well, I've seen him develop. I really have, on the field, off the field. He's now a dad, which I think is a big step for him in terms of watching a player, in this case a person, develop off the field, and I'm super happy for him and his family. Last season, I thought he really did some good things. I thought he affected the quarterback maybe more so than his sack production would show. But moving forward, we're confident in Ed, and whether it's Ed or anybody along our defensive line, that's a huge position for us. I know it's been well talked about, and their development is huge for us as we move forward.
Sean, how do you feel next draft has changed?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel evaluating QBs? How do you feel evaluating QBs during the draft has changed over the years? And do you think teams are more willing to take project guys?
I didn't hear the last part of that.
Do you think teams are more willing to take guys that are kind of viewed as projects?
projects. Well, I'll start with that part of the question. Is I think that's just based on the team you're talking about, whether you are interested in a, as you said, a project or not. If you have the time to develop that. The evaluation process, I think, as much as it's changed, has probably stayed the same to some extent in terms of what people value in the passing game. But there's this extra component now of mobile quarterbacks that are coming with the ability to run the design quarterback runs and also extend plays out of the pocket, as we already discussed with Josh.
More on Terrell Bernard. You said you mostly used him on the outside this past year. Do you foresee him being able to make the jump to the middle?
Yep. He played middle in college, and so that's on the table. And he's shown to this point that he is extremely smart and capable mentally to move from one position to the next.
Sean, Greg Rousseau, having gone back and looked at where is he and where do you think his trajectory, where can he go?
Yeah, I think the thing you got to remember about Greg is he did not play his final season in college due to the COVID situation. And he comes to us, and I thought had a good year one and a better year two. He's extremely driven, conscientious young man that works at his craft. And so when you have that DNA, and he's already done a little bit of this at least, to me the sky's the limit as he moves forward and we move forward with him.
Sean, curious, last year after the Kansas City playoff game, I think expectations coming to the season for Gabriel Davis were pretty high. His first year as a starter as the number 2 behind Stephon. I was wondering if you could comment on what you thought of his play this year and the expectations for him going into next year. I know you said earlier in the conference that you were happy with the room, but talk about specifically Gabe and being a number 2 complimenting Stephon.
Yeah, I thought Gabe had a good year. I really did, and it didn't get off to a great start. There was some turbulent times maybe in the front third of the season, but the thing I thought he handled extremely well was that adversity and came back. He went through a high ankle sprain, and then he came back and I thought really finished the year at moments in a good way. And he'll learn from that, the way Gabe is wired as well. This is a guy that when we drafted him was out running routes, on the field. So he's wired that way to come back and have a great third season here.
Coach, what are the expectations as far as having more emphasis on a run this year?
Sorry?
What are your expectations in reference to the run game this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a part of what we do. If I sit here and tell you, Mookie, we're going to run it 50 times a game, and the minute we run it 49, you'll be writing about it. But no, it's got to be a piece of what we do. There's a physical part of the game that's important, and running's a big piece of that. Whether it's running Josh, running our running backs, I thought we grew in that area last year, and I thought Coach Cromer did a good job with that, as well as our offensive linemen. It's got to be a piece of what we do.
Sean, I know you said most of the jobs so far with free agency and pro stuff, but have you had a chance or gotten feedback on this year's cornerbacks class in this draft?
Yeah, very little. Probably not enough to talk at any length or with any type of wisdom about it, but to be continued on that.
Sean, are there parts of what you and the Bills experienced last season that will stay with you both as a man and as a coach maybe forever?
Yeah, Kim, you're great. Thanks for trying to get me emotional up here. Yeah, I mean, just not to spend too much time looking in the past, but what our staff, our players handled. Every year you go through, there's going to be some amount of adversity, and this year just more than normal, I would say, in my 20-plus years around the NFL. But super proud of how well our players, our staff handled those adverse moments. And I think off the field, right, we didn't get the result we wanted on the field towards the end of the season, but off the field, I think everyone not only will take that with us, but it'll help shape us in our lives as people as we move forward here. Very good? All right, thanks, guys.